okay, the world is absolutely falling apart, but hey, I've got ADHD, so I've catastrophized. I know the worst case scenario, and I've planned for everything that can happen in between. Perhaps I don't need an unlucky technical director. We excavated an unknown service. It was an absolute beast of a cable that apparently served like the east of England's entire, internet, and that was a £400,000 cost. It's like being 1-0 down in a football game. Well, let's win this game 2-1.
Yeah.
You can care about something intimately and put your all into it without it destroying you should it fail.
Today on the High Performance Leaders podcast, we're joined by Dominic Littleford, an experienced technical leader in UK house building. Dominic's career spans over 2 decades in residential development, working his way up from architectural assistant to technical director for some of the biggest names in the industry, including Crest, Nicholson, Taylor Wimpey, and now Cala. He spent his entire career on the technical and delivery side of the business. That's the complex parts that takes a piece of land and turns it into some of the most impressive properties. Today, we're going to get into how he's taken every opportunity thrown at him, which has shaped his career, and what leadership really looks like, especially when the market is tough and you only have bad news to deliver, and how he has embraced his ADHD and used this as a superpower. Dominic, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to have you here.
Good to be here.
So, Dominic, just take us all the way back. How did you get into house building, and how did you get to being technical director for some of the biggest names in the industry?
It's possibly not a unique story, but certainly a little bit different. I didn't envisage being here from the start. It's not the career that I would have chosen for me at any point. As everyone always says, I sort of fell into it.
So that's what happened for you. You fell into the industry.
Yeah, fell into it through deliberate choice to a different part of the industry. So when I was about 8-9 years old, and I was in the same classroom that my son will be attending next year, actually at the same school, which is nice.
Brilliant.
I was asked by my teacher what my dad did for a living, and I didn't really know. So I said he works for Jarvis. Jarvis are a residential development firm in the town which I'm from. And they're known for building high quality houses. And she said, "Oh, okay, look, Jarvis Homes." I said, yeah, Jarvis Homes. She said, well, what does he do there? I said, I don't know. I don't know. Now, he was managing director of the M&E contracting firm for the business. But I didn't know that. I didn't know what that was, or I never asked him. So I said, I don't know what he does. And she said, "Does he ever bring home big blue drawings?" I said, yes, he does. So she says, "Oh, he must be an architect." Now, my dad and I had a very fraught relationship when I was younger.
Okay.
I was considered a problem child for many reasons. I probably was a problem child, but obviously the awareness of neurodivergence these days is a little more
bit different,
nuanced.
isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a bit reductive back then, and ADHD in the late 90s was in the late 80s, early 90s was just a bad child, right?
I can understand that. Yeah, it's just
child. So I'm one of 4 boys. My mum was unfortunately diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when we were quite young. My dad was dealing with that stress, high stress job, large mortgage, kids that, 4 boys is tough at the best of times, let alone with neurodivergence thrown in. But they were spread thin, and my relationship with my dad was virtually non-existent. And I wanted a relationship with my dad. So from that point, when I thought wrongly he was an architect, I wanted to be an architect. And my parents never knew why, but I'd always just said from that age onwards, I want to be an architect.
That's what I want to do.
That's it. So went through senior school. Senior school was quite tough for me. I always achieved high grades, but I also, mucked around a lot. And it was always a case of people didn't pay too much attention to me from a careers point of view because I was a bit of a troublemaker. So the careers guidance I got wasn't great. But I was very academic, and I'd started doing maths, English, and economics as A levels, which I thought was a good choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody told me that wouldn't get me into architecture.
Yeah.
And then after the first year, when I started applying for universities, before UCAS points, all the universities came back to me saying it was preferred or required to either have art or physics, either go down the...
Oh, great. That's helpful to know, isn't it?
Quite, right? I could have done with knowing that before.
Yeah.
That said, I'm not sure I would have been great at either of them. Otherwise, I would have chosen them in the first place. But either way, I was told, you want to do architecture here, you need physics because it's a technical vocation. You want to do architecture here, you need art because it's more creative. And I was stuck in the middle. So in order to get into architecture, I had to quit the A-levels and find a different route in. So at 17, I started working in practice. I just found a local architect's practice and said, you got any jobs? They took me on. I did my ONC for a year, fast-tracked that because I did a year of A-levels, and then I did the HNC for 2 years, both on day release. And then I did my architecture degree, also on day release, which was 6 years, but I deferred a year and did it for 7 because my mum was quite ill in the penultimate year. So I spent 10 years with 1 day at college and or university, working evenings and weekends on university work as far as my brain would let me.
So you're spending more of your time actually in practice doing the job, I guess?
That's it. Yeah, 4 days a week, absolutely. From 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. I'm working in practice because experience, and I still think this experience is invaluable in this industry, which is tough because you can't get the experience if you don't have the experience, But
it's a bit like chicken and egg, isn't it?
I did that. That was, we're looking at 20-hour days for 10 years in order to get to that point. But architecture just didn't. It didn't fix the relationship between me and my dad for a start, which is a shame. We're good now, but it's taken a lot of work. But it wasn't for me. I ended up completing the degree because my mum, was passing sometime soon, and she wanted to see me complete it. It wasn't for me, and my granny liked telling people I was an architect when I wasn't. You know what grannies are like. So I was doing it for other people, and there was a guy that I was very close to in the company who just simply said to me one day, "You're a bit wasted." Yeah. He said, I spent 8 hours a day just drafting on AutoCAD, listening to music, bored as hell, and I would create problems just like I was back in the classroom. And he said, "You know what? I think your talents would be better served in residential development."
So he spotted it and then pulled you into it?
Yeah, well, he'd tried it himself, but found it too high stressed and came back. And that's quite common. There were quite a lot of people, A, in architecture, but B, in that practice in particular, who have given it a go because the remuneration's better on this side. That's the fundamental. But the stress is a lot higher. And when I left there, actually, there were 2 separate people quite high up in the company who both said to me, "You'll be back. Everyone always comes back." And that
lovely, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Maybe that itself is what inspired me to get through the difficult stages.
Yeah, spurred you on to think,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like,
I'll show you.
Exactly right. I'm not coming back. So it wasn't easy to get into. I had several interviews straight off the bat. Now, I'd had 10 years in architecture at this point, and lots of it on residential. I knew what I was doing. I'd helped design a lot of house types for some of the biggest names. Okay. But still, my specialism was residential architecture. So the money is made or lost in the ground and the engineering.
Right.
Is
it really? So that's the critical piece to get right, and then the rest is fairly straightforward.
It depends what product you're putting out. You're putting a mid-high rise, product in there, then it's more nuanced in terms of architecture. And likewise, if you're delivering a high-end home that is bespoke architecture, obviously that comes to the fore. But if you are producing standard house types that are all the same above DPC within boundaries, then the money is made and lost in the ground.
Really?
So engineering is a key point, and that wasn't part of it. So there were some that wanted engineering. I had when we were talking before, I told you I had some very good feedback, which sounded too good to be true. And equally, I was literally shamed and embarrassed in one interview by some guy who, liked his position and liked to make people feel stupid and everything in between. Yeah, there was an HA in Devon. This is how far I went trying to find a job. Wow. My now wife,
and you're in
Hertfordshire at the time. Yeah, I'm in Hertfordshire. Sorry, yeah, absolutely right. So my wife,
it's not around the corner, is it? It's not Venice County either.
It's not. And luckily, my wife is everything. She's the driving force behind me, and she's amazing. At the time, she was my girlfriend. We didn't have kids, but she said, this is the job you want. Let's go wherever it is. So there was an interview I had in Devon. Drove all the way there. It was like a 5-hour drive. I got there, and this guy wanted to shame and embarrass me. Really peculiar. He got out a plan and said, "What's this?" And I went, "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, what's this?" And it transpired in the end that he was talking about what kind of sectional agreement would I need in order to get an access to a site.
Right.
But I didn't understand the question, so I couldn't possibly answer it. And when he did ask the question, when it was framed correctly, I didn't know because I'd only focused on the architecture at that point. And he spent that next hour just trying to seemingly humiliate me.
That's a nice welcome to the industry then, isn't it? Yeah.
It really let me see what the industry was like at the time in certain regards. I happen to know he has never progressed from that position that he was at when he interviewed me.
Wonder why?
Well, exactly right. Exactly right. It's like this industry, it requires humans, especially these days. And that wasn't there was no humanity in that interview.
But you could have given up at that point and thought, do you know what, sub this, can't be bothered with it.
I nearly did. But then, as said to you, I had another refusal from a different developer. There was a high-end house builder. And they sent me a letter afterwards saying, thank you for coming to interview for us. You've not been successful, but I wanted to write to you to let you know it's because we don't think we would hold you in this position for long. We don't think this position would stretch you, and we will be in contact when we've got something more senior. And they were, but at the time I wasn't open to it. But I thanked them and told them I'll be in touch again. And I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that letter. I was like, they send this to everybody. But once again, my wife was the voice of reason, and she said, no, that's real, that's genuine. They don't send that to everybody, and that helped me stick around and say, okay, what's next? So I was looking at a few options. I was looking at setting up an architectural practice of my own, and I spoke to a few developers about getting contracts. But then I got an offer from somebody. And at that point, I'd been working a lot with Crest, Nicholson, Easton, and there were two people there who believed in me, liked me, and the relationship was there. So they said, you know what? If you're actually leaving architecture, you're going to go work in residential development, come work for us. And they've created a role for me, which was great. Weirdly, once I'd gotten through the door there, in spite of being interviewed by the guy who then, my face didn't really fit with him, I sort of fell out of favour a little bit because it was almost like visible tattoos were the reason he didn't like me. He actually told me
just
that.
took a disliking to that.
He saw me. One day it was hot, and I rolled my sleeves up in a meeting, and he went, "What the hell's that?" And then I'm in a meeting where the builder, the main site manager, is covered in tattoos. Yeah. But site managers are allowed to be in this guy's eyes. But someone that works in a professional office that usually wears suit and tie shouldn't have tattoos. Okay. So he said, "I wouldn't have interviewed you if I'd known you got those tattoos." And I was like, "Oh, I guess it's lucky I had my sleeves down in the interview." They were just sometimes your face doesn't fit. The two people that brought me in, we got on like a house on fire. But with this guy, he wasn't a huge fan of mine. I never did anything but deliver. I remember one time he had a go at me around a table. There was the delivery of the substation was going to be slightly late. Right. And it was because things hadn't been progressed in time about 3 months earlier. Now, I've been working for the company for about 6 weeks at this point. And I'm sat around the table in a site meeting as the technical representative, and this guy has a go at me because the substation is late. And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I understand where you're coming from. I will do everything I can to get it expedited." And he's nodding along and saying, "Yep, okay, right." Moves on to the next thing. And as someone else is talking to him, he stops them in his tracks. He goes, "Hang on." Turns to me and he goes, "How long have you been here?" I said, "This is my 6th week." He goes, "Right. And when should that document have been signed?" And I said, "Well, ideally about 12 weeks ago." And he goes, "Well, then why the hell are you taking the rap for it?" And had a go at me for not standing up for myself when he was having a go at me before. So I felt like I was in an impossible position.
You can't win, can you?
Oh, it was amazing. So it was difficult to deal with that.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, Crest was resetting up back in London. They were entering the London market again. And up in the attic of the Eastern office is where they resided. There were 4 of them at the time: the managing director, a technical exec, a commercial exec,
and what year is this we're talking about?
Production director, or production exec. That was 2011, 2012.
Okay. Yeah, so after the recession then.
Yeah. So they used to come down and use the kitchen on the floor that we were on. And I would interact with them when I met them. And we got on like a house on fire. The team that they were assembling were like-minded. The team that was the Eastern team were a little bit different, with the exception of the 2 people that brought me in, just a little bit different. So there was a combination of the production director not wanting me around at Eastern because he just didn't like the cut of my jib. I hadn't done anything wrong.
But you're delivering though, so
100%.
For the company, you're a valuable asset.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, as it was, I ended up doing more jobs. I had more live jobs at the lowest level of the technical team than several technical managers, because they were taking advantage of me. They were saying, "Oh, can you do this job, this job?" And it's fine. I was learning. But these new guys came down from London, from the London office, and when they were looking for a technical manager, the interactions that we'd had meant they said they wanted me at the same time as Easton didn't particularly want me. So I was given the opportunity to go work in London for Crest London on a kind of product that I'd never worked on before.
How does it work in reality then, that type of conversation? Is it just like, look, we've set up the office, do you want to transfer over to us?
No, it was a bit more than that. Yeah. The technical exec was conducting interviews for everybody. External interviews, some internal interviews. Other technical managers at Easton wanted to throw their hat in the ring. So it was a standard interview process, but again, we got on. I was completely open and honest about the fact that this wasn't something I had experience in, but definitely something that I wanted to get involved in. And there's nothing that I can't learn if I turn my hand to it. So, I'm here. I'm willing to learn.
And you've got the track record inside the company, so it's you're a proven entity, aren't you? Really?
Yeah.
No risk.
I mean, I'd been a year at Easton at that point, and there'd been nothing that I'd said no to, nothing that I hadn't tried to learn. And I was in the office at 6 a.m. and I was leaving the office at 6 p.m.
Jeez.
And so the London opportunity came up, and I remember the offer was actually made while I was out in Iceland with my wife at the time. Wow. Not my wife, my girlfriend at the time, but and I was really nervous. I was thinking, this is a product that I don't know or understand at the moment. This is going to be a learning curve, but what an opportunity! And it came from left field. I was going to be happy at Easton, progressing through the ranks for as long as it took. I hadn't said, right, I want to be technical executive by X date. I'd just gone, let's see what this brings, because this is new to me. Now, I'd been in practice for 10 years beforehand. I'm quite a loyal man. But
you at that point, you could have quite easily, I guess, been a bit sort of quite daunting, intimidated, and sort of thought, I haven't got the experience. Let's not touch it for the moment.
And that was in the back of my mind. But equally, I kind of like a bit of the unknown and I like a bit of adrenaline. So
that risk, that opportunity, and give it a go.
Working there was some of the best years in my career, with some of the best people I've ever met. And I've got lifelong friends from it. And it's where I learned to be a leader. I worked for a guy there that I really respect still. And I've spent a lot of my career, and I told him this actually when I met him. We meet a couple of times a year, and I met him around Christmas. And
Is he still in the industry?
Yeah. He's an MD of an SME at the moment. He was an MD at Barrett beforehand. He's very accomplished, but he's a great human being. Yeah. And I've always said, what would he do in this situation when I've tried to think about it? And I had someone say similar to me recently, that they're now a leader of a technical team, and they reach a tough decision and they say, what would Dom do? And it was weird to hear.
Something you learned from him.
I said to them, actually, what you're thinking is what would Dan do, but you don't know Dan.
Yeah.
But what I would do is what Dan would do. And I don't know if Dan would do something that someone else would do, but I really learned from him. I learned from others. The technical executive is still a good friend of mine. And it was a great time. But the next opportunity that came from left field again, I was there again in central London at 6 a.m, leaving at 6 p.m, giving everything. And my wife and I had a child while I was there, and then she said, if you want another child, you need to be closer to home, because this is tough alone. And I'm like, it's a fair point. I'm leaving the house super early, getting on a train and incommunicado for the rest of the day. So I was giving consideration to going back. But then the 2015 CDM regs hit. And my technical executive at the time.
What's that? CDM regs?
So the construction design management of is health and safety regulations. Right. They became more stringent in 2015, and it's only accelerated since with like Grenfell. Yeah, exactly right. It's an ever-changing thing. Yeah, that's why he was a technical executive at the time. Technical and commercial used to come under production. They did at Crest. And it was always arguable at the time that you don't really need a technical director, whereas I think now, with the way regs are, technical is an ever more important function. Okay. at the time, the technical executive, who was very good at his job, and he was always cool and calm, and I've learned a lot from him in that regard. He saw the CDM 2015 regs coming in and basically went,
I'm not having this.
I'm not here for this. Yeah, I'm not interested in this. Exactly.
Right.
So he took early retirement, and I thought, okay, who am I going to be working for now? This is a problem, because I like this guy. Maybe this is the time to go home. And of course, my wife turned around and saw it as a different opportunity and went, well, it's going to be your job, right? And I'm like, wow, I don't know about that. Threw my hat in the ring, interviewed alongside others, and I'd paid my dues for 5-6 years and given it everything, and I knew the job. I got the job, and that was great. Had a great time. We delivered a great product. We worked hard. We played hard. It was a very, very different time. And then I followed my wife's guidance. She said, second kid, you want a second kid? You're coming closer to home.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I need a job in Hertfordshire. So Taylor Wimpey was right time, right place.
Okay.
25-minute drive from home.
A bit
good
different.
Product.
Yeah.
Well, it's back to what I was producing at Easton. It was a standard house type.
Rather than just apartments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did apartments, but they were, 2-3 stories. And post Grenfell, I said we're not doing anything over 5 stories because the BSR is a problem. And it was good. I had some great teams there. I loved working there. I loved a lot of people on the board, and I created some great teams.
Yeah.
Had a good time, and then I took on a bit more than I should have at Taylor Wimpey post Grenfell because of the experience I had.
There's a lot going on then, wasn't there?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
In the central London work that I'd done on mid and high rise meant that when Grenfell happened, Taylor Wimpey wanted a bit of that advice on historic.
You were the advisor on those topics then?
One of, yeah. I chaired the cladding committee, and I did that as a favour to the CFO, who asked me to do it. And he's a nice guy, and I like him, I respect him. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. He told me he needed 6 weeks of work on it. And 18 months later, I was still doing that.
Not a small task.
No, and I was doing that alongside my TD role, and it just caused some friction between me and the MD. So weirdly, that's one of the times when you and I have spoken about, how I've never really set out a plan, and I take my career and I take life as it comes. And saying yes to this task felt right at the time. If I'd had a plan, then maybe I'd have said no, or maybe I'd have leveraged it into some progression. But as it was, it caused a bit of a rift between me and my boss at the time.
Right.
And that hindered my progression in that company.
Okay.
Which is a shame, because I was doing 2 roles to the best of my ability, and both people were happy with what I was doing, but unhappy that I was doing something else. And,
It's a prime example, though, of, when you're not focusing on one thing, you're splitting your time. You're not executing one perfectly, are you?
Yeah. So the accusation was that I wasn't doing either job perfectly.
Yeah.
I was
and you're
doing
feeling
both jobs
drained, stressed.
So then when Cala came calling, I mean, first and foremost, Cala's product is fantastic. And my wife and I had gone to try and move into a Cala home. But
really? So you knew it from the other side then?
So the first time I walked into a Cala home, my wife went, wow. And I went, wow, and that's what we need. So then they were a bit too far for us to move to. It didn't work with where we wanted the kids to go to school, etc. But then when Cala came calling with an opportunity, I was like, this is a company I want to work for. That's where I am now.
Brilliant. That's a prime example then of not entering into your career with a detailed plan already set out. This is where I want to be. Let's work back, the milestones that I need to achieve, what I need to hit to actually get there. You've just gone along with it. Opportunities come your way. You've had, taken advice from other people. They've introduced you. And that's how you got to where you are.
Yeah. I think if I had a plan, the way my brain works, I'm my own harshest critic by a mile. And if I had a plan and didn't execute that plan, I think I would struggle to adjust to that. And there are so many variables.
Do you think it would get you down? It would be like, I haven't hit that milestone, or
I'd feel like a failure.
Yeah.
I would, and that wouldn't inspire me. But there are so many variables. You know, so many things happen. Like Mark retiring because of CDM coming in. I didn't see that. I don't think he saw that. There were a few other things going on for him at the time, and it just happened that way.
Yeah.
There's so much there's so much attrition in the industry. Not from the industry, but from businesses to businesses within the industry, that people move from here to there. To, you know, you look at the CVs of some of the people.
They move around.
Oh, it is. You know, people jump around all the time, and an opportunity comes up that you wouldn't think would be there. One week, something can happen that the next week that opportunity is now there. So, and conversely, when you're looking to progress, saying that, you know, 3 years of doing this means that I can tick that and I can now do this and get that progression. And it's just not that linear.
It makes absolute sense. And, you know, in the construction business, no business is the same as the next business. So if you're comparing yourself against peers, like a lot of people compare themselves now, don't they, about, you know, the crop from university where they are now. And you've got peers who are, you know, maybe in different companies at a different position. They might be a senior or whatever title you've got. And then, but the challenges in that business is completely different to the challenges in that business, and, you know, other opportunities come your way. So it's actually not a level playing field, is it?
That's one of the things in this industry, that the amount of times I've had conversations at companies where we say, what does our structure look like versus our competitors? And more often than not, it's generally aligned amongst the big companies. But then you go to look at a CV of somebody who might be a technical manager, and what you think is a technical manager is a very, very different
completely
role.
different. Yeah. So the job titles can be a bit ambiguous then, really, can't they? You actually got to talk to someone and go into the weeds of what you're actually doing.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, that leads quite nicely on, actually. Just, you know, for the audience, you know, technical director for a large national house builder. What does that actually mean? What does it look like on a day-to-day?
I get asked this a lot. I think this is one of the reasons that I like this job, given my penchant for diversity in workload, is that it's different. Day to day, it's different. Now, there are frameworks within each of these companies that should dictate the progression from identifying a piece of land all the way through to 10 years after handover, when you're still dealing with NHBC issues, although hopefully not. But the piece of land itself obviously comes with many variables that mean that delivering a property on that piece of land can be very, very different in terms of how you get there compared to delivering it on that piece of land.
So that could be in terms of where it is geographically, access, you know, what's trees, you know, if the property there already existing, quality of the soil, all of this stuff.
All of that stuff, plus others, you know, locations of railways nearby that might have acoustic effects, or motorways, or whether there's a particular type of bird that nests on the field nearby. You know, it is there is so much going on that what you know, if you went right, this is the paint by numbers of A to Z on delivering houses on a greenfield site in the middle of Hertfordshire. This is what you need to do, right? You set out that playbook. Well, the next greenfield site that you get in the middle of Hertfordshire is going to be different, but you don't know how yet. And you need to try and assess how as early as possible to allow for that risk and best mitigate that risk. And then there's another risk that absolutely blindsides you. So there's always something new to learn, which I absolutely love. But experience is so key in senior positions because of the things that have gone before that caught you out. Everyone makes mistakes. Making the same mistake twice is something I really try not to do.
So are you looking at these projects then and thinking, you know what you've got to do, but you're actually looking at, well, where could this go wrong? Where could we run into some issues?
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So the baseline is the budget upon which you bought the site. And everything else should hopefully be an improvement to that budget and that margin. But there are so many risks that could eat away at that margin. So, I mean, there are things that have broadsided us that we'll never see again. And you can't allow for them as risks, because if you do, you're not going to be competitive enough to buy the land. So there will always be unknowns and risks. I mean, one fantastic example, I had a site in St Albans that we thought the risk was the soil and whether or not it could be reused, or we were going to have to import soil to build up the levels. We did our best to mitigate all of that. We did asset mapping and surveys of what was running in and around the site. And upon getting access granted and opening the road, all the assessments we'd done of slit trenches to find services had shown what we knew to be there. But a lot of statutory bodies don't understand where their assets are sometimes, which is infuriating. But we excavated an unknown service. We went, well, what's this? This is a problem.
What have we stumbled across here?
What we'd stumbled across was a fibre optic cable that was no normal fibre optic cable. It was an absolute beast of a cable that apparently served like the east of England's entire, and it
internet. Wasn't on any drawings anywhere.
Nowhere. It was on no asset map, and it didn't show up in any surveys or anything. But it blighted the access. And we couldn't dig it deeper and slew it. We couldn't get over it anyway. It had to be severed and jointed, and that was a £400,000 cost. And it's a cost that no one else is going to pay for. But that's something that these things will happen, and there was no knowing this at all, because it's somebody else. It's another company's job to have known that. And tell us.
And why doesn't? Because that's a major thing. Why don't people know? I mean, you see it all the time, and I say all the time. You see it pop up in the news, like a World War II bomb being discovered on a site that's being developed on. There's a similar thing, isn't it? You can't account for that. You just don't know.
And to that end, I like learning those things. And I might look out for it, but on no future site am I going to say allow £400,000 to divert an extra large cable, because it's just not going to happen again. Now I can take the knowledge of where that route ran and say, actually, do you know what? I know that route now goes through this site, and we're looking at this site. So but almost every site will throw up something, and there's a big difference between making a mistake and having something completely just come out of left field. There used to be in this industry a lot of blame culture. There still is in certain regards, in certain areas, and
in a lot of businesses as well.
If
it's high pressure, cutthroat, sales driven, targeted. It is a blame culture.
I'm not a fan of that. I will do everything I can to avoid a blame culture.
I don't think it works.
No,
it's it's like the stick method, isn't it? It works for a short period of time, and then people lose motivation.
I don't think it works with the right people. I think you end up with people who are cowed into subservience and deliver for as long as they need to until they get out, and they do it through fear, and I don't think that works. So when something like that happens and people get down about it and they get worried, or people point fingers and throw mud at each other, I'm very keen to go, let's take a breath. This is exactly where we're at. This has happened now. It's nobody's fault. Let's deal with it. And then we can have a conversation about how we stop it happening again, or whether there were lessons to be learned. I usually find that once something's dealt with, people are less inclined to throw mud anyway. Now, if someone's made a mistake, be it me or somebody else, we'll have conversations about that. And we'll make sure that mistake doesn't happen again. And we'll see, why did that mistake happen? What's going on for this person that meant that mistake happened? And it can be all the way down to, is this the right person for the job? Or were they just simply not paying attention, or whatever?
Absolutely. It's a sort of a complete analysis on what's gone on, why someone messed up, and not pointing the finger at them and screaming at them, hollering.
Nobody, as far as I'm aware, nobody I've encountered so far in my career is wantonly doing a bad job. If people are doing a bad job, it's usually because something else is going on there. What's the problem?
Absolutely. I mean, it could be things at home, for example, family life, take their eye off the ball, stress, or just lack of capability. They just don't know. And
you can address that. Is it the case that you need some training in this? Is it the case that our framework is wrong and we need to do something different to allow you to be better? What is the problem here? Or, there have been many times when it's the case that this person is just not suited for this role or this industry. And there's someone that I've inherited, that I've helped realize this to move on, or I've made mistakes in hiring a couple of times, unfortunately, as well. And you've got 2-3 interviews,
dealing with people,
maybe.
Aren't you?
I've had people hoodwink me in interviews to then 2 months later I'm going, wow, okay, I've made a mistake here.
What happened to the person I saw at interview? Because it's not the same person.
It happens.
But it's you touched on an important point there, which is, it's actually using that as an opportunity to learn from it, and all of those things happening, it's frustrating at the time, very costly at the time. It improves your processes and your systems in your business. So it actually makes your business better.
Yeah, it can do. Sometimes it can serve to cause confusion. I mean, there was one site, we were demolishing an old Victorian warehouse, and we did some SI, some soil investigation, and you have a company do a grid. Right? They come out, and my soil specialist will drive a grid of boreholes and window samples.
So you get an average, I guess, then, are you?
Yeah.
On the quality.
Yeah, exactly. Or you determine what the soil comprises in those locations, and ideally whether or not there is anything unknown that you might strike. So you don't want a grid of 2 meters because it will cost you an absolute fortune in SI. Now, if you're doing it in a field, you and that field has some history. Ignore the archaeological, that's a different aspect, but you might be able to determine there was a barn over here, so let's do more in there because there might be something under the slab. But the rest of it is just an open field, so we'll do a grid at 30 meters, whatever it is. So this site was an old factory, and we said it's an old factory, we need to do a grid probably at 10 meters and see if there are any nasties underneath it. We did this 10 meter grid, and we went, do you know what? It's fine. We've gone through the slab, and it's been built on predominantly virgin soils, and there's no nasties. We didn't find any hydrocarbons or anything to worry about. So this will be fine. And then we pulled up the slab and started doing a reduced dig, and we found 2 basements, and one of the basements was absolutely full of asbestos. And the boreholes, when we looked at it afterwards, the boreholes, one of them went straight down, missed the side of the basement by about half an inch.
Really?
So when we excavated it, you could see the remnant of the borehole underneath and the brickwork next to it. But the basement was such that it fitted like a battleship in the middle of these boreholes.
What are the odds?
It was insane. So that cost us quite a bit of money and time. And it was of nobody's fault at all. It was just really, really bad luck. Nice. Now, I remember the person I worked for at the time said to me, when I explained, this is bad luck. He says, well, perhaps I don't need an unlucky technical director. Okay.
Oh, that
was a nice response. But we continued working together for quite a long time afterwards anyway. But of course...
you caught him on a bad day?
Well, that's it. But the next site, he then... he wanted to tighten the grid because he said, well, what happened over there, we don't want that to happen again, so we need to tighten the grid. And I've said, that's fine, but if, this is a different kind of site, and you're not going to find the same things here, you're probably not. So from a risk perspective, we shouldn't do that, because if we tighten the grid now to 5 meters, it's going to cost us another 100 grand. Wow. So you're spending 100 grand to mitigate a risk that shouldn't really be there. So that's when you're saying, right, I've learned something. I need to try and learn from that on the next job. But if I employ that here, we're just going to throw good money away. So actually, I'm going to take a risk in spite of having learned that lesson, because I don't want to be throwing good money away and affecting the margin.
You want to be spending your money wisely, don't you, on stuff that's actually going to make a big difference, not just mitigating a risk because the previous job you experienced that, and you just want to ensure that doesn't happen again. You've got to look at the averages of things occurring, haven't you, as well?
You have to take risks. It's such a competitive industry out there in terms of land buying. When you are bidding for a site, you might be neck and neck in terms of and
you just don't know, do you?
Overall land value. You've got to take a view on something.
Is that in the house building game then? Is it the land side, the quality of land, doing those assessments where developments either make or lose money? I guess. Does it work like that?
Yeah, I mean, yes. If you are looking at it from a risk perspective, knowing your starting point and improving upon that from your land purchase, that's the name of the game. If anyone could do that, buy it at certain margin and increase that margin beyond that, then great.
Because I guess a lot of these sites, like you're selling properties for stuff that's not even built yet, aren't you? It's all sold. A lot of stuff sold off plan.
Not so much these days.
No?
Selling off plan is becoming, when I was in central London, we would sell off plan.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you just see like the hoardings around the site, and they've got a little sales office, but nothing's gone up.
You don't really get much sales that way
Yeah.
These days. People want to see a
Wanna see
product
something.
before they buy, and
Okay,
they want
so
to walk around it. So you really need a show home.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the sales market is tough right now, and it's been tough for a long time. And that is one of the things that really can undo everything. If you think you bought a land at the perfect, the perfect, everything is perfect from a risk perspective, and then the market tanks and it's tough to sustain revenues and rate.
Well, absolutely. I mean, generally business in the UK it's a tough place. It's any business operating. They're being hit left, right, and centre by everything going up. But obviously in the property space, sales aren't as good as they have been. So it's a difficult time. So for you as a business leader, then how does that actually relate in leading your team of employees? Because when you're going through a difficult patch, when it's, I guess, only bad news to be delivering all the time, how do you keep people, I guess, inspired, motivated to keep on working, working hard when all they're hearing is bad things all the time?
Yeah, it's difficult. It can be difficult.
And you've got to be you've got to be the one who's, stoic, ever the optimist, having to rally people.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that, because those, stoicism is something that I ascribe to.
Yeah.
And being ever the optimist is something that my wife will, she feels she's banging her head against the brick wall with my perennial optimism. Yeah, she tells me how often it frustrates her, because I'm the sort of guy that hangs around at a football match when we're 6-0 down with 30 seconds to go, going, no, it'll be 7-6. It will be 7-6, you mark my words. Yeah. And then when it's not, I'm like, I thought it'd be 7-6.
But I guess that then also comes into, the opportunities that have come your way in your career, and, and all of them presenting a fair amount of risk. And that you're entering into something that you don't know, it's unknown. You've got to prove yourself. But that's the optimist coming out, isn't it?
Yes, and there is a flip side to it.
Yeah.
When I'm overly optimistic with regards to risk and opportunity, that's going to be a problem, because I'm reporting something that I think, okay, this, with a fair wind, this will be the target, and I prefer to be optimistic. But if you're going to choose one of the two, then maybe pessimism wins out, because everything else is a bonus. Whereas when you're optimistic and things fall short, then it's not quite so nice. But it's
but it, having to lead people when business is tough, and not many people get to experience that as well. Everyone can be motivated, optimistic when things like things are going your way, business is great, but I guess it's those moments when the market turns, because you were saying it as well. When we were talking before this, the market is cyclical as well. So you have good times, you have bad times, and I'm sure you see people who've stayed around in the industry through all of those times. But there's also been people who've come and go. They only stay in the sector when things are good.
Yeah, it is cyclical, but I'm starting to forget what the good times feel like. It's been it just is what it is, isn't it? Yeah, there's been a sustained run of a difficult industry.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's tough times seem to bring out the two different kinds of people. You have the people that focus on survival in terms of themselves, and say, okay, I've got a mortgage to pay, and there's nothing wrong with this. I've got a mortgage to pay, I've got a family to look after. Yeah. This is uncertain. What can I find? Where can I find it? What can I find? And they might go leave the industry, find someone else.
So they go for another 5-10 grand more, and then move on.
Yeah, maybe. I've known people take a pay cut to leave the industry. I've known people. Really? There was someone I mentored who went to work for a charity because she just was fed up of the pressure on this side, and she wanted to do something for a charity, and she went to earn much much less at a charity and be happy with her life.
You
can
understand
speak to her now, and she has a great time.
Yeah.
So there's the people that go into survival mode for themselves, I find there's also the people that go into survival mode for the business. And there's obviously a difference between them, whether it's passion for the industry and the product. I don't know. You know, we are a service industry. We provide housing for people. Of course, we make money doing it like any other business. You know, it's not an altruistic development, but we are providing a service, and equally there's a lot of creativity goes into that. Engineers get to engineer, designers get to design, and
you're creative, aren't you?
Absolutely. People like to do what they are doing in this industry.
Absolutely. And you do see a difference, like, a piece of land that had nothing on it, or maybe there was an old wreck of a industrial site there, and then you completely transform it. But, it's building homes for people, which is the reality of it, isn't it? For sure.
Beautiful homes that people love living in, and it's the biggest purchase of their life, and lots of people see things as their forever home. And the transformation is great. The amount of times I walk around a site and say, what is this going to look like? And in spite of being in the industry for so long, I still struggle to picture it. In fact, I was talking to my commercial director the other day. I have a real problem when I walk around sites. I have done since I was a junior architectural assistant, and I'm walking around a home on a site, and I'm walking around a 5-bed house, and I go, is this a garage? It's literally when it's at oversight, when it's just at oversight level, everything just seems smaller. And only when the walls go up do you go, oh, wow, this is a huge house.
You get perspective, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it never fails to amaze me. Yeah. And when you exit a site, if you exit a site correctly and you look at what you've delivered as a team, walking through London with the kids when we were down at went to the aquarium the other day, and we go past a block of apartments that I did. I said, I built that. And my son knows, he's nuanced. I didn't literally build it, but I was involved in the building of it, which is great. My daughter, her best friend, lives in a home that was on a site that I built for Taylor Wimpey. And it's great. And
it just brings it all into reality and perspective, though, doesn't it?
Love
it's
it.
Like there's not many people who, well, it depends what you're doing, but you actually have the opportunity to walk around and you see in the flesh, like, I was involved in that, actually.
It's great.
So you've created.
For sure. The productivity and the fact that there were so many people involved, there's so many people that can walk past those same buildings and say they built it. None of us, some of them literally built it, but we didn't. But we still have that claim, and it still have that feeling. And that's I think, in answer to your question, the slight difference is that there are people who are really passionate about the product in this industry. And when times are tough, it's a case of, okay, so what can we do to make this better? And it's the realization for me when it comes to leading people in those times, it's the realization that this is what it is. We are here, let's take a breath. So when something's on the horizon that could be, you got impending doom and that uncertainty and whatever else, when it arrives, it's easier to deal with than when it's on the horizon. Like, it comes in and you go, okay, it's like being 1-0 down in a football game. You're 1-0 down. You didn't want to be 1-0 down, but you are 1-0 down. Now, we can argue and moan with each other about whose fault it was that we conceded that goal and maybe concede another because we're all distracted, or we can pull together and unite and go, yeah, we're 1-0 down. Well, let's win this game 2-1 and make those differences. So, me personally, I think I'll be in this industry probably until I die. I will retire at some point, but my wife knows that retirement will mean that I do private consultancy or build my own house.
You won't be at home 5 days a week.
Just
watching daytime TV. But it's interesting to hear your take on that. Really, it's like I've seen it in businesses that I've partnered with and hired people for, but you see a trend in people in difficult times. You see the real qualities of someone, don't you? If someone's actually cut out for it and wants to stick around, or someone who's just there when the times are good. Yeah,
and it's leadership in any industry. You have more than one person to manage. It has to be tailored. Every single person is so different that I couldn't tell you without sitting here and counting how many people I've managed over the last however many years. But it's lots. And I might be able to put 2 people in one style of management box and go, this is what we need for these. And then you go, well, that's a microcosm of what we're dealing with here. Usually you've got a team in this industry, technical teams for larger house builders, anywhere between 8 and 20 people. And
so it can be a lot of people, then, isn't it?
oh, for sure.
Not every one of them fits one of two molds, do they?
In amongst those 20 people, you won't be able to group 2 of them.
Yeah.
When I say I can put 2 into a management box, that's 2 of the X number of people that I've managed cumulatively. It's everyone requires something different.
Well, it's the art of great leadership, isn't it? It's being able to recognise that and knowing that the same style doesn't work with every single person, and you as a leader, you've got to adapt, haven't you?
The companies for which you work, also there's adaptation from both sides. My style of people management is different for a different company, depending on the targets, the framework, the style of leadership, the rest of the board. It's nuanced from both ends. It has to be tailored. But I remember during COVID, I had 14 people in my team at that point.
Okay.
And we furloughed 50% of them.
Yeah.
Of the technical team, but we still had targets to meet. We still had sales to deliver. We still had homes that had been reserved that we needed to complete on, and they still had work to do. But there were amongst them, there were 50% of them that had been furloughed who were upset because they'd been furloughed, and they thought their jobs were on the line. Absolutely, they were worried. They thought this is their career over. What are they going to do to pay their mortgage? Absolutely. So they're panicking. And then I had 50% of the staff who were pissed off that they were still employed.
They weren't furloughed.
And exactly right. And they were doing the work of 2 people now, but being paid the same, whilst their colleagues were getting a paid vacation.
But sitting there wondering if there was a job for them at the end of this as well.
But people only see what they see
their world,
in their paradigm at the moment. So they're like, I'm overworked. Meanwhile, he's getting a paid holiday at home. Of course, we know that person at home is panicked and would much rather be working. And I just had 14 people upset and worried for different reasons. And then you've got people that live alone that are lonely and worried, and you need to speak to them every day. And equally, I had people who lived alone who were natural social distancers who were in their element, just going, no, I'm fine. I'm working from home. Leave me alone. And it's that tailored management of people. It's making sure that you're speaking to the right people in the right fashion at the right time that has them produce to the best of their abilities. And some people need this stick that we spoke about earlier on. Although I'm not a shouter or a table basher. There are
and others want an arm around the shoulder, don't they? And
everything in between.
Being told that they're doing a great job.
Yeah, and sometimes they flip. Sometimes the person that has always responded well to the stick, sometimes you can spot that they need that little bit of carrot. But it has to be tailored.
Oh, it's one of the arts of being a leader and one of the challenges of being a leader, and it's dealing with people at the end of the day. Everyone's different.
But it's one of my favourite things. It's
I can tell.
Yeah. Good.
I just want to talk about a bit more of a personal topic, which running up to this episode, you were talking to me openly about, which is being focused and working productively, and that's you've acknowledged that you've got ADHD and actually embraced it and used it as a bit of a superpower. Actually, can you just sort of talk through, because I'm sure there's listeners to this who maybe have some sort of acknowledge they've got something going on with their attention span. I definitely do. So I'd be interested to learn on what you've learned over the years and how you've adapted, how you work, how you lead people, and actually lent into that and embraced that and used that to your benefit.
I don't know enough about it as a subject or how it affects people. I can only look at it from my point of view.
Yeah.
And from my point of view, it led to me being quite good at what I do.
Like multitasking, I guess, sort of dealing with different topics all the time.
I was very, very bad at just drafting people's houses on AutoCAD because...
Just doing that and that thing only.
I have lots going on. I work, a stressful, tough industry, and I do it to the best of my abilities, and I do long hours. But equally, I'm in the gym at 5:45 every morning at home, and I am writing more than 2, but definitely 2 at the moment, books, one of which has taken me 7 years because I only get about an hour each weekend to
I guess
to
that's
write on it.
With no definitive deadline date to aim for.
That's the problem. As we discussed, deadline, it's a blessing and a curse in that when it comes to leaving things late and operating under pressure, that's where it becomes this, superpower, if you like. That calm, take a breath. Okay, the world is absolutely falling apart, but hey, I've got ADHD, so I've catastrophized. I know the worst case scenario in this direction and the best case scenario in that direction, and I've planned for everything that can happen in between because my brain doesn't stop. So I can deal with this. Right down to, we were speaking about university. I wrote my dissertation in a weekend. I had 18 months.
Yeah, I was the same. Yeah, had all that time to do it, and then it was a couple of days beforehand. You think, probably should start it now.
Well, that's it. That's enough of a diagnosis. You're one of the team.
Yeah, same with exams. Night before, I'm there sweating. I should probably read up on this.
I've never been able to do any advanced studying. The dissertation was done in a weekend. I had 18 months to do it, to plan it out. I didn't even know the title. I submitted a title under pressure, a few days before it was due in. And then on the Friday night, I started writing it. Monday, I handed it in and I got a 2-1. And my mother was panicked for 18 months while I was doing nothing. And other people were in the class were unhappy that every time they asked me, I'm like, I haven't done it.
But it's an interesting one though, isn't it? Because it's like, we're not idiots. You wouldn't head into that knowing that you don't have the capability to deliver because you just can't be bothered.
Fair point.
But I guess it's, for me personally, it's like, no matter what happens, I just can't, if I had 2 weeks to do something, it would always be, 24 hours before I'd start executing. But I guess it's also then, you've got that inward confidence that you can deliver and you'll get the job done.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know if I'm around the houses here, but if you didn't have the capabilities, didn't have the confidence in your own abilities, you just wouldn't do that because it'd just be reckless, wouldn't it?
I'd never thought about it that way. Perhaps.
I think probably is that inward confidence in your own abilities, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm a bit obstinate, and you combine that with the optimism, and therefore, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's anything that I couldn't turn my hand to. So I give everything a go, but and the flip side is that means I take on too much. Throughout my career, when somebody has said, "Can you please help me with this?"
Of course,
I've gone, "Yeah, I will." And that's something I've really learned that I try and impart to other people. It's very much a do as I say, not as I do, because I'm one of these people, you sound similar, who's brilliant at knowing what's right and giving out fantastic advice, but not following it myself. But that defined boundary where you say, I'm happy to help, absolutely happy to help, but I can't help you till next Tuesday. Is that all right?
So it's preserving your time then, isn't it? Yeah. It's being, actually, which I've learned in business as well, running my own business now, it's everyone's got the same 24 hours in the day, haven't they? But it's how you preserve your time and manage your time management. I don't know if that's the thing. It's actually how you utilise your time. Like so many conversations that you could have in your day that aren't actually productive to the actual objective that you're working on.
Oh, for sure. Some of the best, nicest people I've worked with in the industry, I've got 2 that have sprung to mind instantly, who their PDR every time I managed them was stop taking things on.
Yeah.
Find a way to protect your boundaries, protect your style, your time and your workload, because you are such a nice person. You are hamstringing yourself and your productivity and your growth, your career growth, by saying yes to everything.
Naturally, people want to say yes to everything when they're starting out in their career because they want to show good face to everyone. They want people to like them, don't they? Don't want to rustle any feathers. Mm-hmm. But the caveat to that is then people become overwhelmed. And
people take advantage of those people.
They do.
The amount of times you see someone going, "Can you? Well, hang on, that's not their job." But they're not going to tell you. They said yes before. And also, even that phrase, "That's not my job." I would, if anyone in my team said, "No, that's not my job," I'm going to. Well, it is now. I'm going to make that your job because I don't like that response.
That's not the attitude to have.
No, it's absolutely. I'll help, but I've just got a bit too much on right now. So can we reconvene this time next week and do it then? Yeah. And if that works for them, great. If it doesn't work for them, they're probably going to go and find somewhere else. But meanwhile, you've been nice enough to offer to help, but you haven't overloaded yourself. Because I see a lot of that going on, especially in technical. A lot of technical staff like to, because we're involved. We're one of only a couple of departments that are involved from cradle to grave. The moment a piece of land is identified, the land director will come and talk to the technical department. And 10 years after we've handed over and there's still an NHBC claim, it will involve the technical department, everything in between. So we are easily overloaded.
So you can always have people come to you for issues that you're not even working on there for this development, for example. It's then Mrs. Smith 7 years later has got an issue with the NHBC, and then they come knocking on your door.
For sure. But I employ people who are eager to help.
Yeah.
So it's one of those catch-22s. I want these people to want to help people because I like employing competent, driven people who want to help. But I need them to protect their own workload as well, to make sure they're delivering on their targets whilst helping other people deliver on their targets and not failing at their targets because they're helping other people too much.
Yeah. It's a difficult one, isn't it? But it's a skill in its own right, isn't it? To be able to protect your time. But for you, with the attention side of things, I mean, have you found some frameworks like blocking out time, for example, or setting targets, milestones in the day? So it's like we've got those small deadlines to aim for consistently throughout the day. Is that something that you've? Yeah,
it's easier these days than it used to be, because prior to the advent of apps and especially Microsoft.
It's a noisy place though, isn't it? Oh, I should have this app, I should have that app, or do I block out my time in Outlook or CRM, whatever it is, Notepad.
So I used to write everything down because my brain is a sieve. I wrote everything down and I went through notebook after notebook after notebook. And I would end each day by summarizing what I had left to do the next day, putting it on the next diary page, and then putting a marker through it when it was complete. And it was archaic even then. Microsoft OneNote, I love. It is so just across everything that it just, and dictation as well. The speed at which you can dictate into that a thought or tell Google to look after something, that's much easier these days. But in terms of actual processes and drive, I employ Mark Twain's advice of swallowing the frog. If there is something to be done, and every day, whatever your list is, something is the most imposing piece of that list.
Maybe something bad, something uncomfortable for you on there. You don't want to have that conversation. You don't want to give someone bad news. You don't want to call that supplier to know that they're not going to pay you, but so all these things.
You're right. A phone call you don't want to make, or a document you don't want to read because it's long and boring, or whatever it is.
All the stuff you keep people put off.
Exactly. And I employ this in my personal life as well. If there is something to be done that is uncomfortable, that's what I do. And I don't know if it's the neurodivergence that does that. Maybe the fact that I am just so obstinate. I'm like, right, well, that's going to be the worst thing. So that's going to be the first thing, right? Because then everything gets easier. So let's say I start every day with a workout in my home gym, which I would rather not be doing.
Nobody wants to do it. I mean, it's like they always say the hardest weight in the gym is the front door.
I've not heard that, but I get that.
The hardest part of getting to the gym is putting your trainers on, which it is, isn't it? Once you're there, it's fine. But how many people want to be getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go and do some exercise? Nobody. It's easy just to hit snooze, isn't it?
Well,
roll over.
I've got a cheat code because I've got 3 kids, all of whom wake up at 5:30 every morning, and they have done since they were born, and they will never be any later. So I will be up no matter what, but I'll get in the gym. But it's
But you've already done the uncomfortable thing to begin with, haven't you? So then, I mean, it's not that the rest of the day's easy, but you're already in that frame of mind.
That to me is the biggest cheat code. Is just what is going to make you uncomfortable out of what you need to do. Go and get that done first, because I've read some studies that indicate that that humans run from discomfort more than they run towards comfort. So David Goggins talks about how motivation is, I think he uses the term, motivation is bullshit. You need obsession and you need to live in discomfort. So once you've got into that habit of living in discomfort, like these studies supposedly show, if you're average, weight, and you want to lose some weight, you want to get toned, if you put a photo of yourself mocked up with a 6-pack on your fridge, it won't stop you opening that fridge. You'll see yourself with a 6-pack and feel comfortable with that image. Right, it's great. I'll open the fridge. I'm going to have a snack. If you put a photo of yourself morbidly obese on the fridge, then apparently the discomfort of seeing yourself morbidly obese will stop you opening that fridge and having a snack.
Interesting.
Humans run away from discomfort. Yeah. So by thriving in discomfort, I find that life just, it's a bit more manageable for me. I look for the discomfort.
I mean, that sort of goes against the grain of, in my career, I've gone on, sales courses, gurus, mentors, whatever, and they always say, get a collage up and put things you want in life on there. That nice house, that nice car, nice watch, whatever. But yeah, I think for some people that obviously works, doesn't it? And that visualization and seeing yourself there. But I completely get what you're saying. It's that running away from discomfort. It's when your back's against the wall. You've lost your job, back's against the wall. You're going to find ways to make money, aren't you? For example, to keep the roof over your head. That's an extreme example, but it works, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's when people are, I guess, in a place of comfort, they don't achieve, do they?
Well, it comes down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and even the fall of empires. People talk about the Roman Empire, Byzantine Empire, all those falling because they reached a level of opulence and comfort where people stop striving, and they go, I'm just going to be fed some grapes and fans. That sounds pretty cool, right? But then it stops the industry behind it all that achieved that empire in the first place.
Yeah, I completely get it. Well, it's been fascinating to sit down with you today, Dom. It really has, and. Before we finish up, I just wanted to reflect on a few things you said, and if you can actually think on some words of advice. And what I wanted to say is, if there's anyone out there looking to get in the industry, in business, looking to excel their career, whatever it is, maybe someone's there, knowing that they're meant for better things, they want to be successful. What would you advise them? What would be, I guess, let's phrase this, if you were advising your younger self, like you're looking back on your career now, which has been very successful, still a lot of success to come, but if you were to sort of give some advice to your younger self on what to do, what would that be?
I want people to care about their job. I want people to be able to achieve what they want to achieve and hold themselves accountable for their efforts, whilst realizing that it's life and it's part of life, and there are other things in life that need to be looked after. I think I took things too personally and too seriously for a long time that I will not think about anymore, and won't think about, should I make it to my deathbed? That deathbed thinking, I think, is key. You can care about something intimately and put your all into it without it destroying you should it fail. And that's something that I really, really had to learn. It felt like my world, when things go wrong at work, it felt like my world was falling apart. And of course, my world is at home with my wife and my kids. And they are my safety blanket, and I go back and I want to be the best dad I can be. But if I'm overly focused on something going wrong at work, then that life is going to suffer as well. It doesn't stop me caring and delivering at work, but the amount of times when I've thought, there's been times when I want to quit this industry. This day is too much.
Yeah. What's it all for? Is it really worth it?
But now I tend to think, am I going to look back on this and think, we still have that same level of depression and regret that something went wrong? Oh, I'm not. Everything's fine. Everything worked out fine. It might have, not been as great as I wanted it to be, but it worked out fine. I want people to be able to do that. I don't want people, young people especially, looking to come into this or any other industry, to pay attention to social media influencers. The amount of reels that you see talking about crushing it and making 6 figures from home by
driving around in their rented Lamborghini or in a house that they don't even own. They've just hired for the day.
That's it. There's so much just fake peacocking online that this younger generation have to contend with that we didn't. I don't think the industry or a decent career has changed that much in terms of what you need to do. You need to be real and honest and work hard and hold yourself accountable and treat others as you'd want to be treated and have a certain amount of drive, whatever it is, all those ingredients that made someone successful in yesteryear, I think they still apply now.
And it takes time. That's what
Yeah.
isn't it? It's sort of walking into a business on day one, expecting to be a CEO in 5 years' time. Ain't gonna happen, is it?
I see that a lot. I see the amount of times I've said to someone in an interview, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's your mid or long-term goals? The amount of times the response is, I want your job. And
It's great to have ambition.
But maybe they've been coached by somebody who said, show ambition.
Yeah.
Maybe show you want their job. But it shows that they don't understand. They haven't looked at the progression between the role that they're interviewing for and my job and what needs to happen by way of experience in that. They might not even know what my job is, what it entails. It's a bit of a trite answer. And whilst people might think it's a good answer, for some people it might be. For me, it says, you haven't thought about this much and you don't know. And that's totally fine. But say that. I'd rather you come into an interview and go, I don't really know what 5 years holds. I want to be here right now. I want to learn from you. I want to learn from others around me, and I want to progress, and I want to be the best I can be. I go, great. That sounds great. Let's work it. Let's do this. Yeah. Whereas when they go, I want your job, you're like,
There's nothing to it, is there? It's sort of just now it's a ChatGPT sort of answer, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems to be. There's a lot of coaching out there as to, this is the golden answer to give in an interview, and it's a lot more nuanced than that. Yeah,
I think it's you said it a few times about being real, honest, and humble, and that's the person you can work with and you want on your team, isn't it?
For sure. Yeah.
Well, Dom, been an absolute pleasure to have you on today. It really has been great to listen to your story. There's so much value you can give to people from listening to this. So thanks once again.
Thank you. Pleasure.